Today we're going to be talking about three different readings for our discussion of Allied Coalition work, domestic workers' rights, and coalition work in communities. We will look at the readings by Ai-jen Poo, Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights, A Feminist Approach for a New Economy. We'll look at an excerpt from Jane Addams that I assigned. It's not in our textbook. It's a PDS on Canvas for you to check out and read. And it's an early example of coalition work in the United States that I think is really interesting, informative, and inspiring. And then lastly, we'll look at the pitfalls of allied coalition work just a little bit, which feeds into the work and the discussion of Jane Addams. So let's just jump right in. So the reading by Ai-jen Poo really touches on a facet of work in society that's historically been very undervalued. We have historically unpaid and undervalued work of women. This undervalued work, we all do it, and very few of us get paid for it, and women are just often expected to just do it, and that's not really thought about, which is maybe something we should change, like how we think about these things, because it is extremely valuable work. Cleaning, cooking, childcare, bathing, grooming, counseling, tutoring, you name it. These are valuable, vital services to society. And the idea of unpaid labor is rooted in the legacy of slavery. So whenever something is being done for free, we can kind of think about what that says about how the attitude and the historical mistreatment of that labor. This type of work, the undervaluing of this kind of work disproportionately affects minorities and immigrant women who are in vulnerable economic positions and often work in positions doing these kinds of tasks. And this employment is often in private homes, which makes the problem invisible. When the employment situation is in a private home, the outside world may not know about it. So part of the issue is bringing that work to light and the conditions surrounding it. And as you, I'm sure, noticed when you were reading Ai-jen Poo's essay, how she highlights the mistreatment and unfair wages and sudden and without warning termination of employment were all very serious situations that are brought up that are being addressed by groups like the Domestic Workers United Labor Union. So domestic labor has really never been factored into national labor statistics. And like I was saying, maybe this is an attitude shift that needs to happen. Perhaps all job salaries should factor in the time and cost of workers having to attend to these duties in addition to the work that we're hired to do, because these things have to happen. This kind of work is vital. As I was saying, it's vital support of basic human needs, and it's taken for granted. It's regularly unpaid and unacknowledged, and yet this is some of the most valuable work that's being done. It's the kind of work that makes all other work possible, because if you don't have these basic needs taken care of, it is very difficult to carry on with anything else. I just had one quote for you here. Domestic workers produce the labor power of the families they work for. Those families go to work knowing that they can return to a clean home, to clean clothes to wear, and to elderly parents and children who will have their basic needs met. So this is a foundation from which all labor is made possible. So domestic labor has never really been factored into labor statistics. And so these things really do need to be addressed. Domestic Workers' Bill of Rights is a campaign that is being spearheaded by the Domestic Workers United Labor Union. And it argues that it is the moral responsibility to value their work because it makes all other work possible. So these types of workers have a right to fair wages, healthy working conditions, fair labor practices, and of course respect and dignity regarding their work. So the kind of work that DW U is doing for domestic workers, it kind of makes me think about just ally coalition work in general. And I wanted to just pause for just a moment and ask you to think about, what does it mean to be an ally? What is the meaning of that word? You can pause the recording for a moment and think about that if you would like. So in the reading by Kristin J. Anderson, she talks a lot about, being an ally and the difference between ally theater and real ally coalition work that does the real work, and the kind of different attitude that's a part of that. And just to simplify it, ally coalition work, real ally work, is a united effort in which everyone has a stake in the success of the effort. There is no me helping them, it's us, and what helps the group is good for all of us. As we often say, when one group is targeted and others do nothing, when is it going to come around to affecting you as well? So the attitude really is supporting the vulnerable people of our communities, is really putting in a safety net that protects all of us at the end of the day. So speaking of, putting in support networks, this brings us to our discussion of ally coalition work and Jane Addams' Hull House. So early ally coalition work at the turn of the century, so this is around like 1890s that this is happening, and really the ally coalition work that's happening with Hull House is the kind of group work concept that actually developed out of settlement houses. So this is kind of where the idea begins. This is the start of social work, as John Ramey explains in the article that I linked on Canvas that you can check out as well to learn more about settlement homes and what they're all about. So the overarching goal of settlement homes is providing social support services and improving quality of life for low-income immigrants. It was especially focused on immigrants at this time because there was a lot of immigration. Not that there isn't today, but it was kind of a newer situation where people were coming in and there really wasn't a network set up to help with all these individuals that were coming in and support them and help them acclimate to life in the United States from the shift from whatever country they were living in before. This coalition work really does go into the worst parts of the city slums, and aim to improve the often wretched living conditions in those places. So Addams' inspiration for her work, she wanted to be a doctor. Her dad would not let her do this. It is quite an altruistic dream to want to grow up and be a doctor and live and work among the poor. She was inspired by her mother's kindness to the poor in the area, surrounding areas, and of course she was a reader of Charles Dickens, so the Tale of Oliver Twist probably gave her some inspiration as well. Which, hey, shout out to books inspiring social reform. It's another kind of ally coalition work if you think about it. So Addams was born into a wealthy family, and she was the 8th of 9 children. Her mother actually died giving birth to her. I know, 9 children, that's a lot. She received her education at Rockford Female Seminary, which is now known as Rockford University, and she was inspired by the idea of social Christianity and the settlement movement. Jane Addams, actually, she goes on a trip to Europe, and that's where she sees settlement houses in operation for the first time. So she discovers settlement houses over there in England, where some are already in operation. She's working during a period where social reform is really kind of taking off, and she is one of the most prominent reformers. So she advocated for world peace. She was actually the first American woman to be awarded a Nobel Prize, and she's the first a woman to be awarded an honorary Master's of Arts degree from Yale in 1910. So Settlement House, she gets started. She's working with a good friend and colleague of hers, Ellen Gates Starr, and they together decide to open up Hull House. And their goal is to create this place to live collectively, kind of living with and among and supporting the community. They're providing social services. Initially, Hull House was thought of as a place where, upper class women could go into the community and share training in the arts and music. But Addams very quickly realized this was not going to serve the community very well and take care of the needs. So she's like, okay, we got to change tracks and really focus on what the services that are needed. Not that arts is not needed. In fact, that is a very important part. But some of the very essential services for the people that were living there included child care and kindergarten for the working mothers who didn't have anyone to help them with that. So she was advocating for decent living and working conditions, and really helping out the people and looking to see what those people needed, and not just like giving them services, but seeing what was needed and then providing those services. So really great connection there. So the settlement house movement, as I mentioned, it started in London in the 1880s, and so it quickly gets adopted and moves into the U.S. cities. Jane Addams is a huge part of that. And the purpose is to help assimilate and ease the transition of immigrants into the labor force by teaching them middle-class American values. I want to emphasize that word assimilate because some of the goal is like to integrate them and make them American and kind of like remove some of what they were before. But Addams actually really, that's not her main goal. In fact, we're going to see that she has some other goals that are quite different than assimilation, what she's going to bring into the process of Hull House, because it's not just erasing the past and the culture from which these people came. She's not okay with doing that. So she's going to address that issue while helping them not erasing their past and their values and their culture. So Hull House provided a number of service to immigrant families, including classes in history, art, and literature. Like I said, she didn't abandon that goal, but it had to be folded in a different way. So she's providing social services to reduce the effects of poverty. So there's discussion groups, there's meals for those who need them. It's a place of refuge and rest from the chaos of the city. There's craft groups, there's unemployment bureau, art gallery, library, clothing for those who need it, art and music lessons, and services for children, kindergarten, daycare. So it really becomes kind of a nexus for political reform, because as she's helping these individuals, she also sees that there's political changes needed to help them still further. So she starts advocating for political reforms to help women and the groups that she's providing these social services for. So the Hull House Charter, just to look at it briefly, to see, like, this is kind of the mission statement, their goal of what they were trying to do, was to provide a center for higher civic and social life, to institute and maintain educational and philanthropic enterprises, and to investigate and improve the conditions in the industrial districts of Chicago. So helping people out socially with education, making the quality of life in the whole area better. And Addams says here, and I thought this was actually kind of a powerful moment in the charter, she says, "If it is natural to feed the hungry and care for the sick, it is certainly natural to give pleasure to the young, comfort the aged, and minister to the deep-seated craving for social intercourse that all men feel." So in this statement, we kind of see, yes, it's very important to help people by, making sure they're not hungry, taking care of them if they're ill. But it's also that social intercourse that seems like a really vital part of this. It's like social intercourse is like that respect and dignity of conversation, of talking intellectually with someone, stimulating their mind, of looking at art with them. So this is feeding the mind and the body. is kind of at the goal of Hull House's goal here. So Hull House is also sets out to combat prejudice. Addams, these are all quotes. I have little quotes from the Hull House kind of a memoir that Addams wrote. So it seemed to me, she says, that Hull House ought to be able to devise some educational enterprise which should build a bridge between European and American experiences in such wise as to give them both meaning and a sense of relation. So she notices the cultural gap, the divide that sort of creates a lot of friction between people that are in America and people that are coming in from different places, and we need to find a way to come together and heal this gap. So, and this is to help combat prejudice against foreigners through storytelling. So the whole neighborhood gets involved in these community projects that Hull House puts on, and it helps to sew the gaps and the sort of prejudice and misunderstandings and fear, the xenophobia that kind of develops between people who are already here and immigrants who are coming in, and that sort of animosity that develops there. And so Hull House starts to kind of try to address that those feelings. For example, combating prejudice, she gives an example of someone who is from a generation of older settlers who had been in the United States for a while, and they kind of have like feelings of discomfort with, and not too sure about the new people that are coming in. This is so relatable to today and what we see all around us, where people are kind of mistrustful of newcomers. And so in a way, this is a really great thing to be reading now because it does speak to our present moment. So Addams recounts this example where someone comes into an art gallery show that they had put on in Hull House. And she says, I recall one old man, fiercely American, who had reproached me because we had so many foreign views on our walls, to whom I endeavored to set forth our hope that the pictures might afford a familiar island to the immigrants in a sea of new and strange impressions. The old settler guest, taken off his guard, replied, I see, they feel as we did when we saw a Yankee notion from down east, thereby formulating the dim kinship between the pioneer and the immigrant, both buffeting the waves of a new development. The older settlers, as well as their children throughout the years, have given genuine help to our various enterprises for neighborhood improvement, and from their own memories of earlier hardships, have made many shrewd suggestions for alleviating the difficulties of that first sharp struggle with untoward conditions. So she's really trying to, heal the animosity and kind of bring the older generation of who were themselves at one point in time immigrants of a sort as well. So how can we bring like the various people with different kinds of immigration backgrounds, and yet still on some level, whether it's a first, second, or third, or fourth, or whatever generation, still have immigration in their past, and how can we tap back into that so that we can feel empathy and understanding for others who are kind of going through the same thing. Also at Hull House, she starts this thing called the Labor Museum. So Hull House, as I said, is not just about assimilation, and the Labor Museum establishes, I have a typo there, I'm sorry, establishes links, not inks, between old generation and Americanized children through old forms of craftsmanship and industrial labor. So the Labor Museum is highlighting older crafting techniques for doing things that new technology has replaced, like having to do with textiles. We have machines and mechanized looms, but some before that existed, many of these things had to be done by hand, and so there was definitely some real skill with that. And so the Labor Museum is highlighting that, and there's demonstrations of it, and so the immigrants can show off their skills. And this is an opportunity for younger generations to kind of understand and get connected with the older generation. This is even in the families of the immigrants themselves, where you have American-born children who are born to parents who immigrated before, and the American children are very modern-minded and don't necessarily understand a lot of what was going on before, the technology, the country they came from, the culture, all of these things that they're just not familiar with because they never lived there. And so this is kind of a way of bringing together those children and their parents to be able to understand one another better, and to have a deeper appreciation for one another. So I'm going to give you an example from the memoir that's of a girl named Angelina. And Angelina has some, I don't know, I guess all kids are a little embarrassed of their parents at times, and so you can probably really relate to Angelina's feelings of embarrassment as to her mother's sort of antique way of thinking and dressing, like it's not very fashionable, right? So Angelina, let me tell you her story. So the Labor Museum, as we mentioned, has revealed the charm of woman's primitive activities. So this is like a spinning, sewing kind of thing. And Addams says she recalls a certain Italian girl who came every Saturday evening to a cooking class in the same building in which her mother spun in the Labor Museum exhibit. And yet, Angelina always left her mother at the front door, while she herself went around to a side door because she did not wish to be too closely identified in the eyes of the rest of the cooking class with an Italian woman who wore a kerchief over her head, uncouth boots, and short petticoats. So that's how Angelina feels about her mom at first. Things are going to change. So one evening, however, Angelina saw her mother surrounded by a group of visitors from the School of Education who much admired her mother's spinning, and she concluded from their conversation that her mother was the best spindle-spick spinner in America. When she inquired from me as to the truth of this deduction, I took occasion to describe the Italian village in which her mother had lived, and how she and the other women of the village had developed a skill in spinning beyond that of the neighboring towns. I dilated somewhat on the freedom and beauty of that life, how hard it must be to exchange it all for a two-room tenement, and to give up a beautiful homespun kerchief for an ugly department store hat. I intimated that it was most unfair to judge her by these things alone, and that while the mother must depend on her daughter to learn the new ways, she also had a right to expect her daughter to know something of the old ways. So here we have that kind of intergenerational repair and empathy and understanding kind of taking place. So continuing the fun, we're wrapping up the story now. So Angelina, she's kind of sitting there, listening to Addams going, so it was easy to see, Addams continues, that the thought of her mother with any other background than that of the tenement was new to Angelina, and at least two things resulted. She allowed her mother to pull out of the big box under the bed the beautiful homespun garments, which had been previously hidden away as uncouth, and she openly came into the Labor Museum by the same door as did her mother, proud at least of the mastery of the craft which had been so much admired. So mother and daughter are finding common ground. We've got common ground between older and younger generation. We've got common ground being found between people who are already living in the United States and those who are newcomers to the United States. So we have a lot of bridging of divides happening here, along with providing really valuable services, childcare, meals, art, rest from, a refuge from the tumult of the city. So Hull House is really helping out the community that it's in a variety of ways. So where are settlement houses today? Do they still exist? Yes, actually. There's an estimated 900 settlement houses in the United States right now. John Ramey tells us that one reason for the near invisibility of settlement houses is that despite some associations, each one works to some degree alone in response to its individual community. which is understandable. Another reason is the name confusion. So there's a little bit of a branding issue with settlement houses. One of the reasons they're not standing out on a national level is each center decides what to do and what to call itself. Some are called neighborhood centers, some just centers, and you can't really tell what the function is from the name. So maybe we need a name that says more about what's happening. And the settlements doesn't have the same meaning associated with it. Settling, like settlement used to refer to, immigrants settling in. Now, this word kind of would more likely bring to mind sort of a lawsuit idea, settling, something like that. So I think they probably need to come together. Maybe if there could be some national collaboration here and settling on a name, and maybe a federation of settlement houses. Maybe this could become like a really prominent organized thing. So, what do you think about all of this? We talked about domestic workers and labor conditions. What do you think makes a good job? What is the criteria for this? What should every job have? What rights do you think all workers should have? And what ideas about labor and social work stood out to you in the Addams account of Hull House in the excerpt that we read? How do they connect to our ideas and our issues of today? Do we need more places like Hull House around? How does Hull House compare to the homeless shelters that exist today? Is ally work as much about healing divides as helping people in need? So that's all I have for you for right now. And until next time, I look forward to hearing your thoughts in your reading journals. See you later.